I remember the day my father threw me out as if it were carved into my skin. I was just 10 years old, clutching the hem of my favorite dress, tears streaking my small face and hoping, praying, that he would see me, not the label, not the shame, not the mistake he thought I was. "You're not my daughter," he said, voice cold and heavy, and in that moment, the world shifted. The floor beneath me felt like it vanished. "Pack your things. You don't belong here." I stared at him, numb. My mother didn't say anything. She just watched, her hands trembling over the dishes, pretending not to hear. And I learned something that day. Love can be absent even where it should be fiercest. I ran to my room, locked the door, and hugged my stuffed rabbit until it was soaked with tears. I whispered to the empty walls, "I'm still me. I'm still me." But the echo that came back was the silence of rejection. I am Margaret, and if you're listening to me on Oma True Stories, thank you for giving me a voice. Tonight, I want to tell you about a journey that began with rejection, was shaped by struggle, and found its quiet triumph in forgiveness and love. Growing up, being a transgender child was terrifying. My peers didn't understand me, and some of their words cut deeper than any adult scolding. "Freak," they'd call me. "Weird." Even the teachers sometimes seemed to look through me, as if I were invisible. At home, it was worse. My father's anger simmered beneath the surface, erupting in sharp words and cold punishments. My mother, she loved me in secret, I think, but fear silenced her. I learned to hide in corners, to keep my voice low, to make myself smaller than I was. When my uncle discovered the truth, the abuse began. And when I told my parents, I was met not with protection, but with silence and dismissal. I was told to forget it, to behave, to be normal. There was no comfort, no justice, only the understanding that being myself could cost everything. By the time I was 15, I had learned survival. I ran away to the city with a small suitcase, a notebook full of dreams, and a heart determined not to break completely. Life on the streets was harsh. Being a young transgender woman in the 1980s meant facing discrimination at every turn. Employers looked at me with suspicion. Neighbors whispered. Even strangers on the street sometimes spat words meant to wound. "You don't belong here," one manager said as I washed dishes in a tiny cafe. "People like you, they bring trouble." I nodded, forcing a polite smile, swallowing the rage and humiliation, and told myself, one day they'll see me. One day I'll matter. I found small pockets of joy along the way. Friends who became chosen family, lovers who taught me trust, and the kind strangers whose kindness reminded me that humanity could still exist. I scrubbed floors, cleaned houses, and learned to take pride in my work, even when the world refused to see me. And then, decades later, fate brought him back. My father, old now, frail, beaten down by life in ways that mirrored the pain he once caused me. He was at the hospital, looking smaller somehow, humbled by illness and regret. I didn't know where else to turn," he said, his voice trembling. "I was wrong, Margaret. I never knew how to be a father." I looked at him, the man who had cast me out, and I felt something unexpected, a cautious empathy. I saw the same fear I once carried, the same fragile hope for acceptance. "I'll help you," I said softly, surprising even myself. "But you need to understand, I'm not the child you abandoned." Helping him wasn't easy. Every memory surged. The nights I cried alone, the harsh words, the fear of being discovered. But as I opened the door, prepared his meals, and sat by his side, I realized forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about me. It was about letting go of the chains that kept me small, that kept me living in the shadow of pain. In the years that followed, our fragile relationship deepened. We spoke of mistakes, of regrets, of lost time, and slowly, a kind of understanding emerged. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. I also found the courage to embrace my own milestones. When I married at 62, walking down the aisle, I felt the weight of every struggle I had endured. I thought of the little girl hiding in bathrooms, the teenager running from home, the young woman struggling to be seen, and I smiled because they all made it here. "Margaret, you're radiant," my spouse whispered, taking my hand. And for the first time in my life, I felt wholly celebrated, not for the person the world wanted me to be, but for who I truly was. If you're listening on Oma True Stories, I hope my journey reminds you that identity is sacred, that love, self-love, chosen family, even forgiveness, can transform even the deepest wounds, and that no matter how cruel life is, there is always a path to peace. I learned to see life not as a series of betrayals, but as a tapestry of resilience, courage, and quiet triumph. The little girl I once was, hiding and trembling, the teenager running through dark streets, the young woman facing discrimination, they are all inside me, witnesses to survival, pride, and endurance. Even my father, in the final years of his life, experienced redemption of sorts. We didn't erase the past, and the scars never fully healed, but the door I opened for him was more than a gesture. It was a declaration that love, compassion, and forgiveness are always stronger than fear, hatred, or neglect. I will not pretend it was easy. Every act of kindness demanded courage. Every moment of patience required strength. But it was worth it. Because peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the acceptance of what was, and the choice to live fully anyway. When I look back now, sitting by my window as the sun sets and bathes the room in gold, I whisper to that little girl I once was, "You are seen. You are loved. And everything you endured led to this moment." Life may never be fair. People may reject you, humiliate you, and leave marks that never fade. But you can choose to open doors, your doors, and sometimes even others. And in doing so, you reclaim your life, your dignity, and your joy. I am Margaret. I am a transgender woman. I survived abuse, racism, and neglect. I forgave the unforgivable. I thrived. And I share this story on Oma True Stories so that anyone who feels invisible tonight can hear a voice that refuses to be silenced. I walk now with quiet confidence. I smile without fear. And I know, in every fiber of my being, that my existence is my own declaration of truth. Life will test us, it will break us, but it will never defeat the courage to be ourselves. So to the child I once was, to the woman who refused to be erased, and to everyone listening, your story matters. Your truth matters. Your life is yours to claim, with grace, love, and unwavering resilience.